The dojo burns in red light. The instructor lunges at me, finger a blade at my face, voice slicing the air. Why? Every student freezes, eyes locked on me, the night janitor with no gi, no belt. No business being here. How did I get pulled into the biggest black belt test this dojo's ever hosted? And why, after a single night, am I the one they expect to save the class's honor? I'm not afraid of contact, but if I fail tonight, I lose more than a match. I lose the principle I've carried since the first time I stepped onto a mat. Respect. To understand why I'm standing here, we have to go back to the night before. Newark, New Jersey, early winter, where breath turns to fog, and the city hums like a machine that never sleeps. I push a rattling cart down the corridor of a community center that smells like lemon cleaner and teenage effort. Somewhere behind the double doors, a class keyes in unison. Somewhere else, a basketball hits backboard, rubber echoing like a heartbeat. My name is Marcus Reed, 28, night shift. I clock in when the lights dim and the day people go home. My job is simple: sweep, mop, tighten, lock. It's a life of keys and quiet. But a long time ago, I had a different rhythm. The measured cadence of bowing onto a mat, the slap of bare feet, the warm sting of a well-placed block. I didn't make it to black belt. Life made a sharper offer: bills due now, dreams payable later. Tonight, the dojo doors are propped open. Warm light spills across the hall, and I see them. White just like small moons, colored belts cutting neat lines around waists. At the front is Sensei Miller, 40s, posture like a lighthouse, voice that can turn tender or titanium without warning. Her eyes calibrate everything. Among the students, one stands brighter to the crowd: Derek James. Young, fast, gifted, and too aware of it. The class breaks into pairs. Thuds and breath. A flourish here, a smirk there. Derek sees me leaning in the doorway, mop like a staff in my hands. "Hey, janitor," he calls, half grin, half challenge. "Warm me up. Quick spar. I've got the public black belt test this weekend." I smile back the way you smile at a dog that doesn't know it's on thin ice. "I'm on the clock, Simon." "Light," he says. The word light, floating in quotation marks you could trip over. The room senses trouble like animals do, without needing language. Sarah Lopez, brown eyes keen, shakes her head at him. "Derek, focus." But the class's curiosity tilts toward me, and Derek's pride tilts toward spectacle. I step in, slowly, respectfully. "Rules," I say, holding his gaze. "No face shots, no knees, control on contact." Sensei calls the stop. A Sensei Miller studies me a beat too long, like she's reading a line of history on my posture. Then, "If you do this, you do it clean." The class forms a loose circle. Air tightens. Derek darts first. Sharp jab, flashy hip feint. A crescent that would look great in a highlight reel. I shift, tap the kick off its line, keep my center heavy the way an old instructor taught me back when the world felt simpler. He rotates, scrapes for balance, recovers fast. Credit where it's due. He's good. But good isn't the same as grounded. He comes again, harder, speed as sugar for the nerves. I step into the space his momentum leaves behind, palm to chest, and stop. 2 inches shy, a reminder carved out of air. The circle exhales in one surprised breath. Sarah's shoulders drop. Derek's face flushes. He resets, swings a clean roundhouse. I load my hips to meet it, redirect, and let it whistle past, with just enough breeze to cool us both. He's learning in real time that control is not a brake, it's the engine. Enough, Sensei says, voice even. She looks at Derek. Apologize. He bristles. I was just testing him. You were testing yourself, she corrects. And you didn't like the result. Then to me, thank you. I lift the mop again, the spell broken. The class returns to order. As I back out, I see a poster taped in the hallway. BLTTST, PUB EMA STIRA TEOS UOI. Fresh marker slashes across the corner. Marcus. The question mark is loud enough to need security. I don't sleep well. Lemon cleaner clings to my fingers. Memories cling harder. A kid in Philly bowing beside a row of scuffed trophies. Believing effort and time would add up to a color that meant something. But life has its own belt system, and it doesn't always bow back. The next day, Newark wears its winter gray. I clock in early, if only to keep my hands busy. When I reach the dojo, Sarah is already there rolling out mats. She sees me, and there's a kindness in her eyes that makes me want to look away. About last night, she says softly, thank you. Just kept it clean. I reply, you did more than that. A beat, then she lowers her voice. That Marcus, on the poster. Derek didn't write it. You think it's a joke. I think it's a message, she says, and the way she says, message, makes the word feel heavier than paper. The evening class swells. Sensei's presence sets the temperature of the room. Derek arrives late, hair tousled, gi slung over a shoulder, humility trying to catch up to his feet. He goes straight to Sensei. Quiet words I can't hear, but can read in posture. Apology, request, the posture of someone asking for another chance. Marcus, Sensei calls, and the room shifts to include me. Yes, Mom. Run a few controlled exchanges with Derek. We'll walk the class through what respect looks like when adrenaline argues otherwise. It's odd how quickly an old language returns. Hands up, chin tucked, elbows guarding ribs, feet talk to the floor again. Derek's first combination is crisp, but intentionally undercooked. I mirror the control and narrate the choices, like a coach translating a storm into sentences. See this? I tell the class as his shin stops just shy of my ribs. That's a decision, not an accident. Control isn't what happens when you run out of power. It's what happens when you finally have enough. Derek nods, breath steadying. Again, he says. And there's more listening in that single word than in all his boasts from the night before. We drill timing windows. How late is too late to block? How early is too early to commit? We talk about distance like it's a contract. We show what restraint looks like, and why restraint isn't weakness. Students start to feel, not just see, the difference between noise and skill. After class, as the warm bodies slip into cold night, Sensei hands me a folded sheet. Tomorrow, she says, public demonstration. I want you there. I open it. 2 names in bold type stare back, Derek, James, and Marcus Reed. Why me? Slips out before I can catch it. Because a lesson half learned can't hold in public, she answers. And because you didn't come back just to mop the floor. Something edges open in my chest, half pride, half panic. I never left a note on that poster. I say, I know, she replies, but someone who knows you did. On my walk home, the city is a string of small sounds. A cat leaping a fence, a bus sighing, a train line singing to itself. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. If you're stepping on the mat, step all the way. No half measures. No signature. Just the kind of line that feels like a familiar scar. I should be afraid. I am, a little. But fear isn't the loudest voice in me tonight. It's something quieter. The sense that all the years I spent thinking I had walked away were just years I spent circling back. Saturday arrives with a sky the color of resolve. The community center fills with parents, neighbors, and bored teenagers who hope someone gets kicked hard enough to post. The poster, BLTest, occupies a whole bulletin board now, and someone has traced the question mark after my name into a halo. Inside, mats are straight, belts tied, hearts loud. Sensei runs the safety brief with the patient ferocity of a pilot before takeoff. Sarah threads through the crowd, wrangling clipboards and smiles. Derek warms up at the edge, shaking out doubt like rain from a coat. He spots me, eyes landing on my hands. I'm not holding a mop tonight. The room feels it too. You ready? He asks. No swagger, just a human being at the mouth of a tunnel. I'm here, I say, and I mean all 3 words. The demonstration opens with basic drills. The audience claps, phones lift. A toddler yells something about wanting noodles. Then, the room tightens as Derek steps forward for the formal test. Kion like lightning wrapped in manners. Kata that feels less like a dance, and more like a memory the body refuses to forget. When it's time for kumite, Sensei tips her head toward me. We bow. The bow is not a formality, it's a treaty. We circle, and the class watches. Not for knockouts, but for choices. Derek fires a combination, the way a confession spills, fast and honest. I meet him where he is and ask one quiet question with every parry: can you stop? He can. He does. He will. Control is courage. I tell the room between exchanges. Anyone can hit harder. Not everyone can hit wiser. By the end, the crowd's applause isn't the storm you hear at a game. It's the kind of sound people make when relief and respect collide. Sensei nods once. The test moves on, the verdict waits a breath away. Backstage. If a dojo can have a backstage. Derek pulls me aside. The boy in him asks before the man can armor. Was that enough? Enough is a moving target. I say, but you moved. When Sensei ties the black belt around his waist, cheers break like surf. He bows to her. To the class, to the sweat in the room that's older than anyone in it. Then he turns, unknots the belt, and places it in my hands. Hold this for me tonight, he says. So tomorrow, I have to earn it again. Before I can answer, the door at the end of the hall opens. A man in a dark coat steps in, shoes clicking like a metronome. He doesn't smile. He doesn't clap. He sets a small wooden box on the table and slides it toward me, then walks out. No drama, no explanation. Inside is a folded white belt, mine, from a lifetime ago. Sweat, stained and edged with a brownish smear. I once mistook for rust until a knuckle told the truth. Under it, a note in tight, deliberate hand. Your match is still waiting. The room around me blurs to a low, warm hum. Applause, laughter, the ordinary relief of a test passed. Sarah reads my face, then the box, then me again. Somewhere in the distance, a kid asks for noodles. The world keeps doing what the world does. I wrap the belt in its cloth, like it's more fragile than it looks. Out in the main room, Derek still glows at the center of a circle. And I'm glad for him. In the exact way you're glad for someone who just chose to become who they said they wanted to be. But the hallway I'm standing in has its own gravity. This wasn't my comeback. I hear myself say, voice low enough to hide in the grain of the wood. It's the summons. I don't know who sent the box. I don't know what match the note means. I only know that for the first time in years, the mat doesn't feel like a place I'm visiting. It feels like a place that's been calling me by name. Newark, New Jersey, late winter. The city wears its cold like a second skin. The streets slick with the memory of last night's rain. Street lamps burn halos into the mist, and the air smells faintly of diesel, wet asphalt, and the bitter edge of roasted coffee from the bodega on the corner. Inside the community center, the warmth feels almost borrowed, the kind of heat that clings only as long as the boilers keep their rhythm. I push open the side door to the dojo, and it greets me with the familiar scent of sweat, baked into canvas mats, of leather mitts and cedar polish. The hum of fluorescent lights above blends with the rhythmic slap of bare feet hitting the floor. I'm Marcus Reed, 28, night janitor here. Most nights, my company is the mop bucket, the quiet shuffle of my own footsteps, and the creak of old doors. But there's a part of me that never left this room, not entirely. Years ago, when I was 14, I stood barefoot on another mat in another city, Philadelphia. My gi was too big, the sleeves hanging past my wrists, but my bow was perfect. Drilled into me by a man who believed posture said as much about a fighter as their punch. Back then, I thought the journey to black belt was a straight-line train, test, advance. I didn't yet know that life could change your course without asking. Now, I only step onto a mat to clean it. And yet, last night, I was standing in the middle of this dojo, with Sensei Miller watching, with Derek James in front of me, and the word, not Ray-dy, ricocheting off the walls. The dojo's heartbeat. Sensei Miller runs a tight ship. She's in her 40s, with hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun and eyes that measure everything. Distance, timing, your truthfulness when you say you're fine. Around here, she's part instructor, part compass. People don't just learn to fight under her, they learn to stand for something. Derek James is her star pupil. Young, athletic, fast, the kind of talent that makes people watch. But his confidence has a habit of spilling over into arrogance, especially under pressure. And pressure is exactly what's building, with the public black belt test looming just days away. Sarah Lopez is another fixture, mid-20s, steady, sharp-eyed, the kind of student who listens twice as much as she talks. If Derek is the lightning in the dojo, Sarah is the grounded line that keeps it from burning the place down. Seeds of tension. It started small. A look from Derek when he thought no one was watching. The faint grind in Sensei's voice when she corrected his form. the way some students whispered between drills. It wasn't just about his performance. It was about the weight of the test, the audience, and what it meant for the dojo's reputation. Then there was the poster. BLAKBLTST, PUBMUSTRADION, SATURDY, Derek's name printed in bold, and underneath, in thick marker, Marcus. Sarah swore Derek didn't write it. Derek swore he didn't even notice it until I did, which left the unsettling question, who did? And why was I being dragged into a test I never signed up for? The conversation. The next evening, I arrive early, mop in hand, determined to keep my head down. The mats are cool under my shoes, the air holding that expectant stillness before class begins. Sarah is already here, tying her belt in front of the mirror. She catches my reflection and smiles faintly. Marcus, you're early. Place doesn't clean itself, I say. She pauses, watching me. You're not just here to clean. I don't answer. She doesn't need me to. She saw last night's exchange with Derek, the control in my movements, the way I stopped 2 inches short of his chest. Sensei talks about you, Sarah says. Not often. But she remembers. Remembers what? That you used to belong here. Her words hang between us. I go back to wringing out the mop. Belonging's expensive. I'm not sure I can afford it anymore. Before she can respond, the door swings open. Derek strides in, gi over his shoulder, hair damp from a rushed shower. His expression is serious, but there's a flicker of something else in his eyes. Hesitation. Marcus, he says. About last night, I was out of line. That's one way to put it. He exhales. Sensei wants us to run through a sparring sequence together. For the class. She says it'll be a lesson in control. The word lands heavier than it should. The lesson. Sensei Miller gathers everyone. Derek and I step onto the mat. We bow. The bow feels different now. Less like ceremony, more like an agreement we're about to prove or break. Derek moves first. Clean, measured strikes. I block, redirect, counter, narrating the choices out loud for the class. See the distance. See the stop before contact. That's not hesitation. That's discipline. He nods, adjusts, tries again. This time his kick halts just shy of my ribs. The class murmurs approval. Sarah smiles from the sideline. Control, I say, isn't the absence of power. It's the proof you have it. By the end, Derek is breathing hard but focused. Sensei steps forward, eyes sweeping the class. This is the kind of sparring I want to see at Saturday's test. Then to me, Marcus. You'll be there. I open my mouth to protest, but she's already turning to correct another student's stance. The decision has been made without me. The invitation after class, as I'm stacking pads in the storage room. Derek appears in the doorway. You think you'll show up Saturday? I think someone's trying to set me up. I reply. He tilts his head. Maybe they're trying to set you free. I laugh once, no humor in it. Freedom doesn't usually come with this many rules. He doesn't answer, just gives a half salute and disappears down the hall. When I lock up that night, the poster in the hallway catches my eye again. The question mark after my name is thicker now, darker, like someone went over it a second time. The night before Saturday, Morning arrives colder than expected. Frost lines the edges of windows, and the city's breath hangs low in the streets. I spend most of the day avoiding the thought of the demonstration. But as evening falls, I find myself walking toward the community center with my hands shoved deep into my jacket pockets. The building glows against the dark like a lantern. Inside, the dojo hums with energy. Parents finding seats, students adjusting belts, sensei checking the lineup. Derek catches my eye across the room and nods once. Sarah leans in as she passes me. "Whatever happens out there," she says, "remember you're not just here to help him. You're here for you." The warm up ends. The audience quiets. Sensei calls Derek forward for his opening sequence. He moves with precision, but I can see the tension in his shoulders. Then, mid-step, he glances toward me and grins, just a flash, before calling out, "Sensei, I think Marcus should join me for this one." The crowd murmurs. Sensei raises an eyebrow. My stomach knots. And just like that, the line between spectator and participant disappears. If you think a dojo demonstration is all formality and polite applause, you've clearly never been in the room when things start to tilt off script. I was standing at the far edge of the mat, blending into the wall like a shadow with a mop handle, when Derek tossed my name into the air like a live grenade. "Sensei," he said, grinning. "Marcus should join me for this one." The crowd's murmur turned into a small wave of chatter. Parents craned necks. A kid in the front row whispered loudly, "Is that the janitor?" Sensei's gaze slid from Derek to me. She didn't say no. She didn't say yes either. Just tilted her head the way you might tilt a glass to see what's left inside. I raised my palms in mock surrender. "I was told this was a spectator sport tonight. Consider yourself upgraded." Derek shot back. Sarah smothered a laugh from the sidelines. The smirk on her face said she knew exactly how this would go, and that she'd enjoy watching every second. The warm up that wasn't. We bowed. The crowd clapped politely, the way you clap for someone about to juggle knives. You're not sure if you want them to succeed or secretly hope for a spectacular disaster. Derek opened with a textbook, jab cross, pulled halfway to make it clear he was holding back. I countered with a lazy block that said, "I'm here under protest." "Come on," he muttered. "Don't make me look like I'm shadowboxing." "You're worried about appearances." I whispered back, pivoting to let his kick skim past. "How unlike you." He grinned, spun, and threw a roundhouse that had just enough flash to impress the front row. I caught the arc on my forearm and shoved gently. Not enough to knock him over, just enough to mess with his balance. The crowd gave a small ooh, and I could feel the room warming to this. They thought it was a show. It wasn't entirely. The turn then, something unexpected in the middle of a combination. Derek's left foot slipped on a faint patch of sweat on the mat. He recovered instantly. Good reflexes, but his guard dropped a fraction. My instinct kicked in before my brain could veto it. A quick feint, a palm to his chest, stopped dead 2 inches before contact. The class caught it. So did the parents. The applause was sharper this time, like they recognized the control it took to stop that close. Derek's grin faded just a little. You're really going to do this to me in front of everyone? He murmured. Do what? Not hit you, I said. His eyes narrowed, but the corner of his mouth twitched. All right. Let's give them something to remember. The secret in the noise, we went faster now. Not reckless, but quick enough that the air between us snapped. Jab, block, sweep. Kick, parry, reset. My ears picked out the crowd's rhythm. Gasps, laughs, the occasional cheer when a move landed clean. Somewhere in that noise, I caught Sarah's voice from the sideline. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to Sensei. I couldn't catch every word, but I heard enough. Posture name, not random. Not random. My mind stuttered on the phrase, even as my body kept moving. I blocked another kick, stepped in, tapped Derek on the shoulder, as if to say, You're open here. He rolled his eyes like he'd heard that critique 100 times. The accidental reveal halfway through. Derek pulled a stunt I wasn't expecting. He overextended deliberately, letting me sweep his leg. He hit the mat with a controlled roll, popped back up, and said loud enough for the crowd to hear. See, even the janitor can take me down. Laughter rippled through the room. He leaned closer. Now you have to finish it. I don't have to do anything, I replied. Yes, you do. You need them to see. The way he said, them, made me think he wasn't talking about the audience in folding chairs. I didn't ask, not yet. Stakes on the mat, we wrapped the sequence with a final exchange. Clean, sharp, a perfect balance of force and restraint. The crowd clapped hard, some even stood. Sensei stepped forward to call the next demonstration, but Derek stayed put. Sensei, he said, voice steady. I'd like to request my black belt test now. And I'd like Marcus to be my partner. You could feel the collective intake of breath. That wasn't how the schedule worked. That wasn't how anything worked. Sensei studied him. You understand the risk? Wes. He looked at me. Do you? The mat under my feet felt suddenly smaller. If I said yes, I'd be pulled deeper into whatever game this was. If I said no, I'd walk away and wonder forever. Sarah's eyes met mine. There was something in them that wasn't just curiosity. It was warning. The decision, I'll do it, I heard myself say. The room reacted like someone had just announced free pizza. Half excitement, half disbelief. Sensei nodded once, clipped, and gestured for us to reset. Then we begin. The crowd leaned forward. My pulse matched their anticipation. Derek shifted his stance, and for the first time all night, his expression lost the smirk. It wasn't student versus janitor anymore. It was something else entirely. The bell rang. Derek came in fast. I moved to meet him. And somewhere between the first strike and the second block, I realized this wasn't just about a belt. Whatever was written on that poster, whoever put my name there, this fight was the first step toward finding out why. The bell rings with a tone that feels colder than metal. Not loud, just precise. It slices the air between us into before and after. Derek moves first. Not with the showman's flourish. He leans on when he wants to impress, but with the functional geometry of someone who's decided to be honest. The jab is straight, his shoulder stacked, wrist neutral. I see the small corrections Sensei drilled into him, the back heel anchored, the chin not hiding but aware. His breath times the strike, not theatrical exhale, just the clean release of stored air. All of these details matter tonight, not because they win points, but because they anchor who he is under pressure. I parry outward, feel the residual heat of his glove skimming my knuckles, and choose not to counter. The first exchange is a conversation starter, not a headline. He recalibrates, steps off, line the way we walked through yesterday, half a shoe length. A small decision that will look like a miracle to anyone who's never learned how much a half inch can rescue you from. He fires the cross. It arrives like a promise he intends to keep. Block, reset, measure. The room's temperature changes. You can tell when an audience is watching for blood. Their breath turns sharp and syncopated. Tonight, what I hear is different, a hush that wants to understand. The parents in folding chairs are leaning in, phones lowered. The brown-haired kid who wanted noodles in part two isn't asking for anything. Even Sarah has stopped writing notes on her clipboard. I can feel the eyes, but they don't weigh me down. They locate me. Distance, I say, not loudly, just enough for the front row and, by echo, the back. You don't fight an opponent. You fight the distance they carry with them. Derek nods mid-step. It's an odd thing, nodding inside motion. It requires faith that you'll still be where your feet planned to put you by the time your head returns to task. He throws a low kick that is neither timid nor hungry. I check it with a shin that remembers more than my mouth admits, and we both hear the small clap of bone on bone, the kind of sound that separates people who like martial arts from people who need it. There's a drifting memory in the periphery. Philadelphia, cheaper mats, a stern man who cared more about how I stood than what I struck. Power is not the first thing, he'd say, and it is never the last. Back then I thought he meant technique. Now I know he meant self. Derek sets a rhythm designed to test whether I'll chase. He gives me open doors. Intentionally lazy shoulder, a low guard on his lead side, the kind of bait that makes a crowd gasp when you step through. I don't. A younger version of me would have, partly to prove I saw the opening, partly because openings itch. Tonight I let them itch. I'm not here to scratch, I'm here to teach and learn. We escalate, not to reckless speed, just to fidelity. His next combination chain is 3 beats, then 4, then a half beat pause meant to steal my timing. I allow myself to be stolen, just enough to show him how he can take the moment back. He sees it. The understanding lands in his body before it registers on his face, which is exactly where you want understanding to live. Crowd noise blurs into a warm river at the edges of my focus. Only 2 things stay sharp: the metronome of Derek's breath and the precise vocabulary of his stance. When he's confident, he lengthens his base by a fraction and his hands float. When he's afraid, his elbows tether too close to his ribs, as if protection should be a position instead of a decision. He's not afraid now, or rather he is, and he refuses to let fear be the narrator. Again, he says, mouth barely moving. We reset to a mid-range Derek used to hate. Too close to be stylish, too far to clinch. He commits to the harsh mathematics of it anyway. Step, step. This time I respond with contact instead of air. A palm touch to his shoulder stops him from walking deeper into my pocket. My other hand escorts his lead wrist, just off its ideal path, polite as a waiter and firm as a door. He feels the correction, the crowd sees the choice. The difference is important. So many people confuse the two, the felt truth of a movement and the visible drama of it. Good, I breathe. But I'm not congratulating a technique. I'm acknowledging an acceptance. Derek has started to believe control is not a ceiling on power, but the structure that lets power stand without collapsing. Sensei is still as stone near the corner cone. Only her eyes move, and they move like they're cataloging our decisions for later. Her posture reads as something between witness and steward. The dojo isn't hers alone tonight. It's ours, briefly, collectively, a temporary experiment in keeping a promise. We will do this clean. We link into a longer exchange, a little spar of narrative. He threatens low, I discourage it. He rises high, I make the ceiling feel lower. He pivots to my outside, I give him either a trap or a door, depending on where he sets his weight. Our hands talk, our feet argue, our torsos mediate. It's a good family fight. No one throws a plate. Halfway through the round, there's a shift. It happens inside Derek, then through him. He's no longer imitating control. He's operating from it. There's a difference you can sense the same way. You sense sincerity in silence. The kid who chewed on smirks yesterday now chews on breath and timing like their food. In that instant, my job changes. I am not here to beat him. I am here to be the wall he learns to measure without hating the house that built it. He lunges. Real risk now. Not choreo. My body decides before I vote a tidy pivot, my forearm inside his line, my hip writing a limit he can read. He could collide. He chooses not to. The restraint is his, the relief is mine. Applause flares, then quiets as if the audience has agreed not to contaminate the fragile thing in the middle of the room by clapping too much for it. You can applaud a finish. This is not a finish. This is a beginning pretending to be a middle. Switch, Sensei says. I take the pads. A few students whisper, the kind of whisper that's less gossip and more collective note taking. Derek works combinations, but Sensei's eyes are on me now. She sees a small tremor when I catch a heavier cross. It's not fatigue. It's memory of a time I didn't catch something and paid for it with a ringing skull and a day of swallowing blood taste. She knows. I can tell from the way her mouth softens without smiling. Teachers know the shape of what you've learned the hard way. We hit the last sequence of the round. 3 controlled power shots, moving target, then break. Derek delivers. Each strike lands into the mitt with enough force to send a clean pop through the room, and enough control to stop the wave of force from drowning either of us. 3, breathe. 2, breathe. 1. On the final pad, I let him feel my arms give an inch before I brace. A small gift and a small test. Do you chase that inch with ego? He doesn't. He gives me the inch back by settling his base, instead of pressing forward. Somewhere, his earlier version pouts. The current one approves. Bell, short, merciful. We bow from the waist. Not deep, true. Deep can be performance. True cannot. The audience erupts, and for the first time since the doors opened, I allow myself to hear them fully. It's not the thunder of sport, it's the relief of recognition. People came to watch a contest. Many of them are leaving having watched character. That shift matters, maybe more than the belt. Derek steps back, chest rising and falling in a rhythm that matches mine. His eyes shine in that way that makes you suspect both sweat and gratitude got there by the same route. "Thank you," he says. Not the performative thank you give when a camera finds you. The private one you give because you realize someone held you close to a cliff and did not shove. I nod, because anything I say will cheapen the exact size of the moment. Words can do that, flatten the contour of a truth that only exists in the air between two people, inside a shared fatigue. Sensei calls him to center for the final sections. Kan review. Kata under expectation. Then the part of every test I consider the real exam spirit. He executes the technical tasks with a simplicity that tells me he has finally unglued achievement from theatrics. His kata doesn't feel like a performance for the crowd, it reads like a letter. He writes to his younger self, careful handwriting, no crossed out lines. Stances sit, transitions breathe, the roar from the seats arrives in polite waves. He accepts it. He doesn't surf it. Then Sensei turns quiet. I watch the muscles in her face arrange themselves into a posture as formal as any stance. "Why do you train?" she asks. The room follows the question. You can feel 50 people moving inward without leaving their seats. Derek doesn't answer immediately. The silence is not empty. It's full of the inventory he's taking, and it is long enough to irritate any judge who confuses speed with sincerity. Sensei lets it be long. She's counting a different metric. "When I was younger," he begins, voice steadier than it has any right to be, "I thought I trained to win. To be fast enough that nobody could touch me, and loud enough that nobody would forget me." He swallows. The auditorium swallows with him. "But when I almost lost this," he nods to the mat, to the room, to the relationships soldered inside it, "I realized winning isn't the point. Staying is. Staying when ego says leave. Staying when fear says rush. Staying long enough for respect to become muscle memory." A mother in the third row covers her mouth. A student near the back sits straighter in their chair, as if posture could accept truth on its behalf. Sarah looks at the floor the way people do when their eyes are too wet to keep looking up. I have the strangest sensation. Time stepping aside to let us pass. Sensei does not praise him. She doesn't need to. She simply says, "Bow," which in this room means receive the weight of what you just said, without pretending it's light. He bows. The crowd releases sound like it has been holding breath for more minutes than a body can claim. Applause smashes into the rafters, ricochets off banners, and comes back transformed from noise into gratitude. Some people stand. Some don't, but their stillness is not refusal. It's reverence. Sensei has the belt in her hands. Black, ordinary, nothing mystical, nothing magic. Just cotton and thread and accumulation. The quiet between her hands and Derek's waist is loud enough to hear the building settle. She ties the knot not like a gift, but like a contract. "Wear it," she says, "as a promise you intend to keep." Derek bows again, eyes glassy, and I feel a pressure right under my sternum. Something like pride, and something like H. The achy of realizing I might have been wrong about the permanence of departure. Maybe we don't leave the places that made us. Maybe we orbit, sometimes close enough to warm our hands, and sometimes so far that we mistake the cold for truth. The ceremony dissolves into a dozen small human solutions to joy, laughter, hugs, awkward photos, the swapping of phones for better angles. I fade toward the margin, where the light thins and the hallway exhales cooler air. The adrenaline leaves my body, like tide pulling back from a stubborn shore. On the table near the door sits a stack of folded white towels and a roll of athletic tape. I take neither, and instead put my palms on the cool surface, grounding for a moment that feels like it should have words and refuses them. Sarah finds me. She knows how to approach without breaking what you're holding together. "You okay?" she asks, voice pitched low, mothering without condescension. "I will be," I say, and the grammar of that sentence tells the truth. Future tense, not present. She reads it. She has always been a good reader. "Whoever wrote your name on that poster," she adds after a breath. "Got what they wanted."
"What's that?"
"For you to stop standing in the doorway." We look down the hallway. From this angle, the dojo's bright rectangle looks like a stage framed in black. People enter that rectangle and leave altered. I did tonight, even though my clothes look the same. I think of the text on my phone from the unknown number. No half measures. The phrase lodges under my ribs again. Annoying and correct. The world is full of advice that is either. This one insists on being both. "Marcus," Sensei says from behind us, and I turn as if my name contains a command I forgot I signed. She walks up. The black belt's last echo still visible on her fingers, a faint indentation where the knot pressed. "Step outside with me." We move into the corridor, where the noise flattens into a distant ocean. For a beat she says nothing, letting the silence test whether I can endure it without trying to fill it with preemptive apologies. I pass, or at least I don't fail fast. "You held your line," she says finally. "His control was his. Yours was yours. That is rare. Rare and not accidental. Thank you." I answer, and it feels both inadequate and exactly the size of gratitude I can carry. She looks down the hall, where the poster hangs slightly crooked, the question mark after my name freshly darkened. Someone traced it again, the ink still a little shiny. "Whoever wrote it," she says, echoing Sarah, "wasn't joking." "You know who sent the text?" I ask, realizing I am more tired of guessing than afraid of knowing. She doesn't answer the question I asked. Instead, she asks the one she cares about, "Do you want back in?" The air changes temperature. Not warmer, not colder, clearer. I don't know what N means anymore, I admit. I'm not 20. I don't have the hours a kid can steal from sleep. I don't have. She lifts a hand, not to stop me, but to cut the sentence cleanly so it doesn't fray. "In" doesn't mean chasing a belt. It means choosing a room that tells the truth about you. If this is not that room, say so. If it is, return as you are. No myth, no performance. For a heartbeat I'm 14 again. Standing in a Philadelphia gym that smelled like vinegar and triumph, believing that a belt would repair everything the world had dented. Then I'm 28 in Newark, understanding that repair is slower, smaller, made of repeated decisions that look boring from the outside and feel sacred from the inside. I'll come back, I hear myself say. Not as a ghost, as a student. Good, she says, like she'd already written the sentence, and I finally signed it. Then start Monday. And Marcus. She waits until I look her in the eye. Cleaning the floor at night was never the only way you kept this place clear. She leaves me with that. It's the kind of line that could embarrass a lesser teacher. In her mouth it doesn't. She's not flattery. She is assessment. I stand alone for a long minute. The corridor feels like a bridge. One end is the audience, still bright with post-test energy. The other end is a darker door that leads out into the winter evening. I could walk either way and the choice would look ordinary to anyone watching. It isn't. Footsteps. Derek again. He a different version. He approaches slowly, belt now tied, the knot neat, the ends even. I meant what I said. He offers. I trained to win. Tonight I learned to stay. You tied that knot clean, I say, and it's not small talk. It's diagnosis. People who rush tie sloppy knots. People who know where they are tie even ones. He laughs, light, not performative. I'll probably mess it up tomorrow. That's fine, I answer. Tomorrow is where the real test lives. Not in the mat. In the morning after. He shifts, like he's about to ask something heavier, then decides to wait. There's food in the rec room, he says instead. Sarah says you're required to eat, or she's going to call your mother. He grins. I told her I don't think your mother has that number anymore. We both smile at the same old hurt, softened by time. Tell her I'll be there in a minute, I say. He nods, then surprises me by bowing, small, unceremonious, the kind of bow you give when gratitude lands, and you don't know where to put your hands. He walks back toward the noise. I watch him go, the belt ends tapping his hip like punctuation. When I finally turn toward the darker door, it's not to leave. It's to breathe. The outside night swallows me in a clean cold that feels like a reset button on my skin. Across the parking lot, a streetlight flickers twice and then holds. I can't help reading omens. The brain is a pattern machine. But not every flicker means storm. Sometimes it means electricity, doing what it does, imperfectly. A shape moves near the edge of the building. A coat, maybe. A person, maybe. My body registers it before my mind finishes the thought. The silhouette doesn't come closer. It watches. I watch Breck. Not yet. Just geometry at the edge of attention. When I return inside, the applause has mellowed into conversations and paper plates. Someone has found noodles for the kid. The world insists on its small joys. I accept that insistence. I let the warmth of the room find my bones. I let the smell of bad coffee and good relief mix in the air like an unremarkable miracle. Then, quietly, almost politely, the corridor door clicks again. Not the man in a dark coat from another retelling. Not yet. Just the promise of footsteps I will come to recognize. For now, I carry forward two truths that don't clash. Derek earned his belt, and I earned a place on the mat again. One was celebrated, the other, almost nobody noticed. That's fine. Some victories prefer the understudy's dressing room. I pick up a towel, wipe my hands like I am washing a moment clean enough to keep, and head toward the rec room lights. The camera in my mind tracks with me, then lingers a beat on the crooked poster in the halls. Bielek bietesti, pubue dimeridum, citurdy. Someone has drawn a third line under my name. Not a question mark this time. Just a line, like a sentence beginning. The building settles. The mat's cool. Breath returns to its domestic size. In that soft pocket between ovation and exit, I understand something simple and heavy. The fight I owe isn't to a person. It's to a promise I made to a younger me, who didn't yet know how long keeping a promise can take. The bell that started the round still echoes somewhere in the rafters. Or maybe that's just my heart, finally choosing a tempo it can live with. The noise of the crowd has thinned into the quieter chaos of good endings. Laughter over paper plates, the shuffle of chairs, the pop of water bottles. Derek's black belt is tied, neat and even. He moves through congratulations like someone navigating warm rain. Happy to be soaked, not in a rush to dry off. I stay by the side wall, leaning against the cool cinder block. My hands are empty. My chest isn't. Across the room, Sarah catches my eye, tilts her head toward the hallway. I follow. The corridor is dimmer. The hum of the vending machine the only sound until the outside door clicks open. A man steps in. Mid-40s, maybe older, dark coat, collar up. His shoes make no sound on the mat-free floor. But the way he moves says, he's used to being noticed when he wants to be. And invisible when he doesn't. He doesn't greet me. Doesn't greet anyone. Just stops 3 feet away, holding something small in his hand, a wooden box, worn smooth. He sets it on the table between us and pushes it forward with 2 fingers. I don't open it right away. I look at him. He's not smiling, but there's a tension in his jaw that reads less like anger and more like anticipation. It's been a long time, he says. His voice is calm, but each word feels placed deliberate. When I lift the lid, the smell hits first. Aged cotton, sweat baked into fibers, the faint metallic tang of dried blood. My old white belt, folded perfectly. On top, a note in narrow, precise handwriting. The match you walked away from is still waiting. A flash of memory. A tournament I never finished. A fight that ended before it should have. A debt I told myself didn't matter anymore. I look up. He's already halfway to the door. Who sent you? I ask. He pauses just long enough to make it clear he heard me, but says nothing. The door shuts behind him, leaving only the hum of the vending machine and the box in my hands. Sarah steps out from the dojo entrance. Marcus. I don't answer right away. The belt feels heavier than it should. Not just cotton and history. It's an invitation wrapped in unfinished business. Derek in the center of the dojo. Still shaking hands. Sensei Miller watching from the corner, unreadable. The poster in the hallway. MARCUS no longer has a question mark. Someone's replaced it with a single, straight line. The wooden box on the table, lid still open, belt inside like a coiled reminder. My reflection in the vending machine glass, eyes fixed forward, jaw set. I close the box, tuck it under my arm, and walk back toward the dojo. Derek catches sight of me, lifts his chin. Everything okay? I don't slow down. Not yet. Sarah's gaze follows me as I pass. Where are you going? To find out who's still waiting. I step through the main doors into the cold Newark night. Streetlights hum overhead, and across the street, in the shadow between two parked cars, the man in the dark coat is still there. Watching. The camera would hold on my face. No fear, no relief. Just a decision hardening. This wasn't my comeback. I think gripping the box tighter. It's my summons.